Beards and Flicks, baby.
Okay, guys, we are back with another podcast episode.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. My name is Brad Johnson. Welcome to Beards and Flicks. I am joined, as always, by Mikey D.
The Justice League.
How are you, buddy?
I'm
the
great.
Justice League. That's not going to stick. We're not going to use that.
Haters. We got haters in the room. Okay,
you
fine.
can't make up your own nickname.
Okay, fine. We'll legitimize this. You call me Justice League.
Legit. That's awesome.
Forget it. We won't. Okay, it's cool. No, I have plenty of other names to last me forever.
We are back with another episode, and this episode, we're talking about one of my favorite movies. One of my favorite movies that I return to every Christmas. It's not Christmas until I watch two movies. Scrooged, which is what we're talking about today, and Christmas Vacation.
Oh, okay.
Those
Nice.
two I absolutely love. Home Alone is going to be watched. My son loves it. Elf is going to be watched. We're
Right.
going to talk about these movies. But Scrooged is my kickoff for the season. I even, towards the end of November is when I watched that movie.
Yeah.
So
Which is when it came
This-
out. It came out before Thanksgiving.
this was your first time to watch it?
Yeah.
Very first time.
Ever.
So had you ever heard about it?
I remember memories as a kid. This comes out in '88.
88.
I remember seeing the trailer
Okay.
and just remembering at 8 years old thinking, what is this?
Yep.
Because the trailer
So-
had the big, the hand of death. It looked
Yeah.
huge. It had the little elf chick, which we'll definitely discuss, who
Yeah.
beating up Bill Murray in the trailer. I was
Yeah.
like, what is this?
Yeah. So a timeless tale. We've seen so many versions of this movie,
Yeah.
of this story, the Scrooge story. I mean, there's even a DuckTales, character named after this
Yeah.
character, Scrooge McDuck.
Would you say this is the darkest
This
rendition?
is the darkest. Now, the Jim Carrey version was pretty dark too.
Okay, see, I never saw that
That was a
one.
Robert Zemeckis animated motion capture film. So this was Richard Donner in his heyday, right? Richard Donner is very famous for action movies in the 80s and the 90s. Teamed up with Bill Murray, who I love. We've already had a pretty big discussion about Bill Murray. But what are your initial thoughts going into Scrooged?
So going in, I just thought, okay, I'm going to love this because it's Bill Murray.
Okay.
And then as I watched, I do a little research first, and then I watched it. And I said, man, this guy is on level 11 the entire time in this movie.
entire movie.
Dialed up through the roof.
Dude,
the
so
entire
much
time.
energy.
Yeah. And there were certain moments where it you know what? It made me think, because I want to be a director one day, it made me not want to work with actors like that because he's so dialed up. And obviously you had a director who didn't know how to reel this guy in.
Yeah, there was a lot of pressure from the studios to get this movie made really fast.
Okay.
I don't think that Bill Murray was really interested in this role, but he decided to do it, and there was a lot of friction on set.
It's Murray's first role in 4 years after the success of Ghostbusters.
Exactly, his first starring role since
Yeah.
Ghostbusters '84.
And it's his first movie where he's got to carry it by himself.
Yep,
So there's a lot of pressure.
a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And it's a big movie.
It is.
A very modern retelling of the story. You have like a television executive. He even says he's the youngest executive
Yeah.
in the business, who like climbed to the top of the ladder really fast. He is in love with himself, very egotistical.
Yes.
He like the whole thing where he like wins the award. And he's like, I'm gonna cherish this and all of you. Obviously, he doesn't care about anybody else. He doesn't care about, like, he's walking through Central Park with his brother, and his brother's like, "Are you gonna be there at Christmas tonight?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "I'm not gonna do that."
Yeah.
And there's the famous late night band playing. Did you notice that?
No.
That's Letterman's band. One of the street musicians is Miles Davis.
You're kidding.
No
What?
kidding.
Legend.
David Sunborn, another one of the musicians, Paul Schaefer.
Oh,
that's
okay,
Who
yeah.
it is. So Paul Schaefer is leading the band.
I had no
and
idea.
Miles Davis is literally in this band. One of my favorite jazz musicians.
Mine too.
I love Miles.
I'll have to go back and watch that scene.
So Bill Murray's walking through, and this band is playing in Central Park, and they're like doing a really good job, like way better than a street band like would normally sound.
Right.
And Bill Murray sarcastically, he's like remarks. He goes, why don't you just rip off all the old hits? Like, making fun of them. Clearly, they're like a great band. So that was a really funny cameo for Paul Schaefer and Miles Davis.
Was. Man, I wasn't paying attention to that background.
So you were talking about how you'd never seen this before.
Mm-hmm.
You said you're gonna love it when it starts.
Yeah, and when it starts, you find Bill Murray and his, I guess, boardroom.
Yeah.
They're going through different ads to run for Christmas.
Yeah.
Which are great.
Yeah, so funny.
Lee Majors trailer they play.
Yes.
I want to see that movie for real.
The night the reindeer died.
It reminds me of like a Quentin Tarantino Grindhouse movie.
Absolutely.
It's bloody and it mixes in holiday and Christmas. Yep. I want to see that movie for real.
There's a lot of 80s Christmas movies, Christmas horror movies that are like in that vein.
Yeah, I've seen a half of them. I've seen a few.
I bet you have.
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah. And then he's like, oh, that wasn't good. Let's watch mine.
And then it's like, it's in his mind, and he's narrating it, and then they cut to him. He's like mimicking the words you hear.
Yeah, mouthing the words.
Yeah. That was crazy too, and something that didn't really age well, which I'm surprised. I'm surprised they put this in the film then in '88.
Yeah.
The scene where the airplane takes off, and you hear the narrator go, "International terrorism," and the plane blows up.
I know.
And immediately I was like, "Oh, they put this in the movie for real? Okay."
Yeah.
They really went there.
That was back in '88 when like that hadn't really happened. It was more of a like a terrible scenario, like a worst case scenario thing, and then it, of course, happens later in real life.
So when you watch this movie, do you watch it on television?
I actually purchased this on Apple TV years ago.
Okay.
And because I watch it every year, I used to have the Blu-ray, but I don't know where it is anymore. So no. I used to have the DVD.
Yeah.
I never purchased the Blu-ray. And I just bought it on streaming, and I just watch it every year on streaming.
I asked because I wonder if, like, when this movie's played on TV, if that little airplane clip is taken out.
They probably edited it out.
Yeah, they'd have to, I would think.
Yep.
So you talked about Richard Donner. This is like where he's pretty much at the peak of his prime.
Directing.
So he got his start in television, which I didn't know because I've always just known him as he made the original Superman, 1978.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so this movie is a decade later. So he's had a very illustrious career. Even the TV shows he worked on in the 60s and 70s were big shows at the time.
And even movies later in his career, like big movies that are really good.
There's a ton of movies that he did I didn't know it was him.
Yeah.
So I was impressed by his body of work.
Let's talk about him a little bit.
So some of the shows he started off on were all huge shows. The Rifleman,
Yep.
Gilligan's Island, Perry Mason, Twilight Zone, Man from U.N.C.L.E., Get Smart. And then until 76, he does The Omen. So it's his first horror film.
No way, I didn't know he did The Omen. Yeah.
And then, of course, 78, Superman. And then he does The Toy with Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
Goonies, which I didn't know he did Goonies until recently. I saw it this year with you guys. Lethal Weapon 1, 2, 3, and 4.
I love the Lethal Weapon movies.
Same.
Bro, we got to choose one and do it.
So let me ask you this, because I don't know if there's a mistake on my part or what, but in the notes I've got Lethal Weapon 1 through 4. I thought Shane Black did one of those.
He wrote them.
Oh, okay.
Shane Black was the writer.
Okay, see,
Richard Donner was the director.
I'm more familiar with Shane Black as the director, not the writer.
Probably the best buddy cop movies
I've ever seen
in their time.
Yeah.
Like, I really enjoyed Beverly Hills Cop, not necessarily a buddy cop movie.
Right.
The team up of Mel Gibson and Danny Glover was incredible.
Yeah.
And it was so 80s action, you
Yeah,
know,
it
the
was.
explosions and the guns and all that stuff. That's kind of where I learned about Richard Donner. I was like, this guy, he gave me Goonies, and I love Goonies.
Yeah.
He gave me Lethal Weapon, which they're so good. My favorite is the third one. That's where Joe Pesci's introduced, and he has a big role.
I love Leo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Scrooged is a very 80s movie.
It is.
80s fashion.
When you watch movies that were made in the 80s, you can just tell it's 80s, man.
It's stuck in that time, right? They're not going to be able to get out of that time.
Like a brief sidebar, late last night, I'm watching the first Bad Boys on TV. I just happened to catch it.
Yeah.
It's one of those I return to often. And it's the action sequence when they kidnap Taya Leone's character and Will Smith's shirtless chasing the bad guys.
Yeah.
So 90s.
So 90s.
Certain movies you watch, you just know it's in that time period.
It screams the time frame that it's in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's harder to tell movies that are made now. It's harder to kind of place them because they all kind of seamlessly transition to...
I think directors kind of wanted to make things... More modern directors want to make things less timeless.
Right.
I'm sorry. More timeless.
Yeah. I agree.
Yep. So they can be viewed at any time.
Right.
Yep.
So it's funny because we did cover Beetlejuice, obviously before for our Halloween series.
Yep.
And that also came out in '88. and along with Beetlejuice, we've covered some of the movies on this list before, but I did write some different ones down this
Awesome.
time. So other movies that came out that year are Rain Man, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Coming to America, Big,
So many good movies.
the first Die Hard,
Yep.
and Bull Durham.
Oh, Bull Durham.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin Costner, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's like his breakout role.
It's a pretty good movie.
So for the year of '88, big movies came out that year.
Big movies.
Yeah.
So let's move into the cast. Let's talk about Bill Murray and who else.
Actually,
who else we
I'm
got?
going to cut you off real quick for a
Wow.
second, and I never do this.
Yes, you do.
I do.
Don't
You're
say
right. I do it
that.
often. My bad. It's my thing. I'm the cut off guy. I'm changing lanes, man. I'm Ben Affleck.
Wow.
See what I did there?
That was
Ooh,
nice.
I'm built for this.
How long? That was in your.
I stored away in the files,
Yeah.
kept it
You
in
had
the
that
tape.
ready.
Yeah, ready to fire them off. So me being a writer,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get my work out there, my scripts. I'm gonna highlight the writer for once because
Let's
I
do
never
it.
really do that.
Yep.
And I've been slacking. So the writer for this movie was Mitch Glazer,
Mm-hmm.
and he's written movies that I've heard of. I'm fans of. The Recruit with Al Pacino
Nice.
and Colin Farrell. Love that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And he's done like a bunch of Bill Murray movies.
He has. That's right.
I was shocked. So he's kind of one of those writers that,
Sticks with.
yeah.
Yep.
And Bill Murray obviously is a fan of.
Yeah, it's called a talent pool. So whenever you have
Okay.
a director that uses the same actors or writers that write material for the same people, it's called a talent pool.
Oh, okay. And actually, he's actually working on a reboot of Scrooged, and with Kevin Hart to be in the role. And last week we talked about Kevin Hart being cast in the reboot of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Oh, that's right.
So I guess Kevin Hart's going to be the reboot guy for
Nice.
a while.
That's good. Really good writer.
We talked about Richard Donner already, obviously the director,
Yep.
co-produced with Art Linson. Danny Elfman
Oh, yeah.
composed the music for this film. Budget was $32 million, which I thought was really high for a movie like this. And I tried to
It's a big budget.
justify what they spent that much money on in 1988.
I want to say it was like some of the visual effects.
Okay.
They use a lot of practical effects in this.
Yeah, they do.
Star power, maybe, because there was a bunch of pretty big people in this
There were.
that probably need to shell out some money for.
But I mean, they made the money back big time. $100 million is what they
Wow.
earned.
Yeah.
Crazy amount of money made
Dude,
back.
that's
So
in '88.
Yeah.
$100 million is a lot of money.
for sure.
Man, that's good. Well, let's go through the cast. Are you
Okay.
ready? Are you ready for me to do that?
Yeah.
Am I allowed to do? Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Karen Allen.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Karen Allen?
As soon as I saw her, I was like, oh, Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones, Starman, like so many big movies around that time.
Yeah.
It's the biggest to me is Indiana Jones.
I have a quick sidebar about her. So there's the scenes of her at the homeless shelter.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the jacket, because 80s women wore like jackets
big-
with the big shoulder pads.
Yeah.
She looks like a linebacker, dude, with those shoulders,
That's
man.
true.
That had to be the jacket, I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember that standing out in Indiana Jones, so it had to be
Yeah.
the little jacket she's wearing.
Something about Karen Allen that I find attractive. I don't know, like she's really pretty
I'm totally out on
until
that.
she
Nope.
smiles. I'm not a fan of her teeth.
What, her
I
teeth
don't,
are jacked
I
up?
don't know what it is.
Really?
I mean, they're not that bad, but
Yeah.
like, and it may be the romanticized thing I have in my brain of her from like Indiana Jones and in this movie, Scrooged. But yeah, she's like, in my mind, she's like attractive. But as soon as she starts talking.
We're talking about mouths.
Oh,
I'm
are
going to
we?
go ahead and I think I have a Hollywood mouth.
You have a Hollywood mouth?
Hollywood mouth. Let me just explain, because
Okay,
it's not
please.
what you think.
I'm confused.
So I think I have really jacked up teeth, which I do. I'm not insecure about it. It's
Okay.
obvious.
Okay.
When I smile, laugh, talk, you can see it. I have a gap in my top row.
Okay, yep.
I call it the Lawrence Fishburne,
It is pretty Lawrence Fishburne.
but his is way bigger than mine, so it's fine.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then the bottom row, I've got like a Tom Cruise bottom row, because his bottom row are kind of jagged. They've got some teeth are like leaning to the side, they're
Yeah.
lazy, the rest are whatever.
Yeah.
So Hollywood mouth.
Hollywood mouth.
So I own it.
Is that another nickname?
No, because I gave it to myself.
Yeah, okay.
According to your rules, we can't do that.
Yeah,
so.
no, it was your rule.
Well, according to my rules, we can't do
Okay.
it. So if you say Hollywood mouth, then I can say it.
Yep. Let's talk about John Forsythe.
That's a great name, by the way.
He died in 2010 at age 92. He was the original Charlie's Angels.
Charlie? Mm-hmm. Man.
He was in a ton of movies, including the new Charlie's Angels movies.
Wait, he was the voice of Charlie in the 2000s, Charlie's Angels?
Yeah.
Man, he didn't age a day with the
So
voice.
he was Charles Townsend in the 70s
With Farrah
series
Fawcett. Yeah,
with
yeah.
Farrah Fawcett, Farrah Farrah Fawcett, and then they used his voice as Charlie on the phone.
Okay.
Like whenever you would hear his voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
He was big in the 80s and the 70s. Got his start in the 40s, bro. Like he has been around for a long time.
He's 92, so yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So his most notable role is The Trouble with Harry in 1955.
It's a movie?
With him and Shirley MacLaine.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Let's talk about John Glover, because John Glover was really big in the 80s and 90s as well. Gremlins 2. He was in a Mel Gibson movie called Payback, which is a really good movie.
Yeah, it is. I love Payback.
Yeah, In the Mouth of Madness in 1995, which is like a weird fantasy, like... He was in Shazam. He was as the father. Did you see the movie Shazam?
Well, I saw it with you.
Did you see it with me? I went on a date with it.
You saw it with the date. I wasn't your date. You must have saw it again.
Did I see it twice?
Maybe so.
Okay.
And you took your son to see it, so you've seen it 3 times.
Yeah, no, I've seen it. He was on the date because she had a
Oh, okay. So yeah, 'cause
yeah.
you told me about that.
All right, cool. Because he got scared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know him as Lionel Luthor from Smallville, the TV show.
Yes.
So when he walks in, I said, "Oh, that's Lionel Luthor."
He was also on Agent Carter. So he was in DC and Marvel.
Look at that.
Look at that. He was on Blacklist for a while. Most notably for me was Scrooged.
Okay.
His role in this. As the kind of apple polisher, like director that the big guy brought him in.
Yeah.
Because they realized that Bill Murray's character couldn't really do this on his own.
Right.
And he's like a hotshot, young guy.
I love that scene because the president of the studio was telling Bill Murray, "We're going to bring somebody on."
Yep.
And you just look at Bill Murray's facial reactions as he's reacting to getting the news.
Yep.
Because he likes to be the man by himself.
Uh-huh.
You can just tell you hated that.
Oh yeah, and that scene where like he had already been visited by his old boss, who tells him that there's gonna be 3 ghosts.
Yeah.
That whole thing. They're at the restaurant, and he gets handed a glass of water, and there's like an eyeball in it.
Yeah.
And his reactions in that scene were all his screaming, and he sees that guy the waiter on fire.
Yes.
And you hear the la 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 la, like all that Danny Elfman music.
Right.
Which I love. And my favorite part of that scene was the waiter, because he was like, Bill Murray was like, "I want to have," and the guy goes, "Have." I want to have. Like, it's such a funny scene. I love that.
Yeah.
And his boss is like, "Don't come a part of me, Frank."
Yeah.
It's a good scene.
So you talk about, you kind of mentioned when he's visited by his old boss.
Yep.
Who tells him he's going to be visited by 3 spirits. That probably is my favorite scene, and it's also my best line category, because when he sees him walk in, he thinks he's, hallucinating,
Yep.
stressed out because of work, and he grabs a gun he's got in his drawer.
What does he do?
I watched this scene 3 or 4 times in a row. He kept
You
going
rewind
back.
it?
Every bullet he fires, he goes, bango, 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 ba-bang, 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 blam, blam. Like he's sound effecting his gunshots.
Yeah.
And I just lost it because I wasn't expecting it at all.
It's classic Bill Murray.
Yeah, it is.
Just like blam, like it's bingo, bango, or whatever. It's so funny, man. Yeah, and then he goes, watch your guns, Frank. He goes, watch the scotch or whatever. Because he takes a drink and it just
comes out of his holes.
Like,
yeah.
I love all the practical effects. There's like the mice in his head pushing out the golf balls and all that stuff is really funny. And of course the arm part where he like pushes him out, the window becomes liquid.
Yeah.
And he pushes him out and like he starts ripping his arm off and he falls.
I'll admit, I didn't expect that part to happen. I thought he was going to pull him back in.
They ramped up everything in this movie.
Everything's at an 11.
Exactly.
Everything's at an 11, yeah.
Exactly. And like, he falls down and he wakes up and he's in his chair and it's like leaning back and it's a close up of the phone and the numbers. That was creepy.
Yeah.
I thought that was really like
Same.
legit creepy because the numbers are being pushed and he calls Karen Allen's character.
Right.
So some more of the cast that we haven't talked about yet. Robert Mitchum was Preston. Robert Mitchum is a major Hollywood actor that's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Born in 1917, died in 1997. In some major movies. Out of the Past in 47. These are some of his big movies. The Night of the Hunter in 55. The Longest Day, which is a major
that's a
war
huge
movie
movie,
in
yeah.
1962. And then Cape Fear, the original Cape Fear in 1962.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So some major roles for him.
Well, one of my favorite standouts in the movie, when I think of this guy, I think of 80s movies, Bobcat Goldthwait.
Bobcat Goldthwait, who was, you're right, he's very big in the 80s and 90s, and he like disappeared
Yeah.
for like a long time. And he's kind of back now.
Okay.
He's like a director
Yeah.
or whatever now, a director, producer. But he's doing that whole fake voice thing.
So when I saw that, I thought, okay, so that must be how he really talks.
It's not how he really talks.
Okay, so he just uses that
It's-
as like that's his shtick then.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm a fan of that. If you're gonna try to differentiate yourself from every other role you've played,
Yeah. So he jumped on the scene in Police Academy 2
Yeah.
in 85, and he reprised that role for the next 2 films in the series, which there was like 12.
Yeah, it was a lot.
There's like so
It was
many.
too many.
So many of them. He did stand-up for a long time. He was the opening act for Nirvana when they were on tour.
wow.
When it was their final North American tour.
Okay.
Before
Kurt
Kurt
Cobain
killed
died,
himself.
yeah. The first thing I thought when I saw him sitting at that table in the beginning is, I wonder if he's gonna still have the voice, because I didn't know
Yeah.
if that's really how he talks in real life,
Yeah.
or if he just used it for Police Academy.
Can we talk about that scene where there's an African American guy sitting across from, and he does that laugh.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
like laugh. I thought that was so funny.
It was really weird.
It was really random.
But it made me laugh because it was how out of nowhere it was.
Yeah.
And Bill Murray cuts over, looks at him, and he just immediately stops laughing.
He goes, I'm sorry, like, or whatever.
Alfred Woodard.
Bro, she was fantastic in this.
Yeah.
And she's in one of my other favorite movies with Robert Downey Jr.
I know what it is.
called what?
Captain America Civil War.
That's not what I was going to say.
Well, she's in it with Robert Downey Jr.
I know. God. The movie I'm talking about is Hearts and Souls, and I've talked about this movie on the podcast
You
before.
have, yeah.
So Civil War, she plays the mom of someone who was killed, and she's very upset.
Yeah.
She kind of stops RDJ in the hallway.
It's a great scene.
She's also in 12 Years a Slave. She's in K-Pax. She's in The Lion King, the new one. She was on a series called, was on a movie called Juanita, which is like one of her biggest starring roles.
Okay.
She was on Empire for a long time. Civil War, on The Last Ship. But Heart and Souls is like one of my favorite roles she's ever had.
Okay.
Wasn't she on?
Luke Cage.
She was in Luke Cage.
Yeah,
That's
she
what
was
she
in
was
Luke
in.
Cage, yeah.
Yeah. Really good role for her. All right, so let's talk about like these scenes, man. Like these crazy, the way this story goes. Like it's just so crazy. He gets visited by these ghosts. There's one that's wearing a tutu, and I think it's your favorite character in the
Listen,
movie.
man. So I recently just told you before we started recording this, I asked you, I said, do you ever have moments where you do something and then you ask yourself, am I on drugs?
Yeah.
Because it's something you just feel like it's so out of character.
It's crazy, yeah.
Maybe I'm losing it. I don't know. Can you get dementia at 40?
Probably.
I shouldn't probably
if
joke about
you
that.
can, you will.
Thanks, Brad. You
If anybody
jinxed it.
can, it'd be you.
I'm not going to say never, because
Just
whenever I
kidding.
say never, it happens. So
Never say never.
I'll always have dementia.
Never say never again.
No, I'll never get it. I said never. I tricked myself. See? I'm on drugs. Anyway, yeah, I'm watching the scenes with these 3 spirits, and the fairy spirit, which is the ghost of Christmas present.
Yep.
That was the weirdest segment to me, because she's constantly physically assaulting Bill Murray.
Yep.
And I read some of the trivia. She was really assaulting him in real life.
The part where she pulls on his lip.
Yeah.
They had to stop filming for a few days because like she damaged his lip.
And you watch that scene, like knowing that going in, I watched that scene and she really went for that rip, man.
She really did. She hits him several times.
Yeah.
A lot of crotch shots. Hits him with a toaster. Knocks him down the stairs.
So I just walk me through that, because I don't understand why she had to go through all that if she's supposed to be just showing him something to make him change.
I don't really know. There's no explanation for why she's assaulting him and being
Yeah.
physical with him. The scene we're talking about though is really cool because like those are really Bill Murray's brothers.
Yeah, I found that
Did
out
you know
too.
that?
Yeah.
3 of his brothers are in this movie.
Yeah, because one of them plays his father.
Brian Doyle Murray plays his father, and he's been in a lot of Bill Murray movies. including
Ghostbusters,
including What About Bob? He frequently shows up in Bill Murray movies.
Right.
The other two are not actors; they were just in this movie.
One of those guys is the brother we talked about at the beginning when they're walking down the street
in Central Park.
Yeah.
Yes. So, but as far as your question goes, I don't know why she was so violent towards Bill Murray.
And she was laughing. She was obviously enjoying it, the character.
The only thing I can think about is like she just to get his attention. Like it's just because he's so caught up in himself.
Yeah.
And just to get him roughed up and get him like to stop thinking that way.
Right.
And to really focus on what she's trying to show him.
So it's like she was beating the old ways out of him, I guess,
exactly.
in a way.
Exactly.
And the pitch of her voice, I could not be in a room with this woman more than 10 seconds, and I gotta go, man.
So of course that's a fake voice that she's using. What is her name? Hold on. Her name is Carol Kane.
Yeah.
And Carol Kane has been in a million things. Addams Family, Values, the sequel. Hold on. Princess Bride, The Pacifier with Vin Diesel. More recently, the F is for Family series. The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, which is her role in that is very similar to this role.
Okay.
Did you ever watch that show?
I've seen bits of it.
It's a
My
Netflix
sister
show.
loves it, so
it's
yeah.
so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's in a new show called Hunters on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
With Al Pacino.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Logan Lerman's also in there. He's the young guy.
Yes.
From Fury.
Yeah. Logan Lerman's good. She was also in another movie with Bill Murray called The Dead Don't Die.
We saw that in Dallas last year.
Yeah, I came up to visit you. I was doing something
for work,
and I just said, "Hey, I'm in town. Let's go see this movie."
So, quick sidebar. That was a great day for just a number of reasons. We've never really just hung out in Dallas where I live.
Right.
So it's cool to do that, and we planned to go see a movie that was out, and that was one we picked.
And it was so exciting because.
And before we see that, we go out to IHOP, and it just happens to be like the anniversary of the company.
Yeah.
And pancakes were like a penny.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, let's clean up. Yeah. But then we watched that movie, and by the end, we're just like, what happened? You kind of explained to me that's like the director's style, is to make those really weird, quirky films.
Yeah, the director of that movie is Jim Jarmusch. And Bill Murray's been in several of his movies. And Adam Driver's in it, Tom Waits is in it, Chloe Savini's in it. It's a very off-kilter zombie movie.
Yeah.
And the pacing is really weird and very slow, and that's Jim Jarmusch's like MO.
Okay.
Like, that's what he does.
And a UFO shows up at the end.
It's so weird. Yeah, there's a lot of weirdness.
Again,
happening.
this is why I feel like I'm constantly on drugs.
Oh,
I watch
okay.
movies like this.
Okay.
And you're always there. So.
Yep. So we talked about the Ghost of Christmas Present, but we skipped over the Ghost of Christmas Past.
Yeah.
Which that weird guy who's driving the cab driver.
He was fun though.
He
man.
has like that New York accent, which I'm sure you love.
I loved it, man.
Yeah.
I was all for that.
And then there's a really funny bit where like the ghost goes through the door and Bill Murray thinks he can go through the door. And he like hits his head and he's like, that's a great bit. And the ghost is like, I love that bit.
They always think they can do it too. Something like that,
Yeah. And so they go in and there's like this really, really like kind of emotional scene.
Yeah.
Where it's like baby Frank sitting there in front of the TV.
Which is very accurate is when the baby Frank is sitting like 2 inches from the TV.
So close.
That's so true.
That's what we did.
Yeah.
That's what we did, right? The TV was furniture because it was like in this wooden thing.
Yeah.
And his mom's like, don't sit too close. Don't stay up too late. Or what does she say?
Don't stay up too late, I think is what she says, yeah.
And he's like, okay, mama. And like, it was such a sweet little moment. And his dad comes in, being a jerk.
Oh, yeah.
And he's upset because he's had a hard day at work and, stands up on his feet all day or whatever. And he gives him what? What is it? What's his present?
Yeah, I should know that.
He buys him 5 pounds of veal.
That's what it was.
And I remember it because on the package, it's a number 5, the pound sign, and V.
Oh,
That's
okay.
what, 5 pounds of veal. And he's like, he sets it down. And obviously, it's not a choo-choo.
Yeah.
And he
because he's a daddy, I wanted a choo-choo train. Yeah.
Kind of a sad scene because they needed to be sad.
It's a great scene, completely ruined by Bill Murray trying to cry and not believable at all.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
It's pretty bad.
I will say this. Love Bill Murray to death. We talk about him often.
Yep.
but he can't do the emotional stuff, man. He doesn't have the range for that. Because they cut to him in the window watching this unfold.
Yep.
And he's remembering that was him as a kid,
Yep.
had how it all played out.
Yep.
And he's trying to force himself to cry, but Donner just kept the camera on him while he's trying to get these fake tears. He's like
Yeah.
squinting his eyes and his bottom lip is puckered out. It just
Yeah.
it ruined that scene to me because the scene was a really good scene.
The scene that I love though is when they're on the street talking after the Christmas party.
Yeah.
Like he goes back outside and he's like,
Yes.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay, go there.
Oh, okay.
You brought it up, man. I'm following your lead on this one.
It's the funny banter about, like that's when she starts calling him Lumpy.
Yeah.
And he's like, young lady, like she's leaving.
Right.
And he's like, young lady, do you frequently go down this street to go to the grocery store? And she's
Yeah.
like, yeah. And he's like, oh, okay, because I'll walk over there.
Across the street, yeah,
and like they're, future or current Bill Murray is in the cab with the cab driver and is like, ba-da-dum-bum-bum, like that whole thing. Really funny. Like I love all that stuff.
Yeah. A lot of my best moments happen in like the first 10 minutes before.
Early part of the film?
Yeah, before he's even like left the building or
Okay.
before he's been visited by any ghost.
Yeah.
So when So Bobcat Goldthwait's character
Yeah.
starts making suggestions.
Yeah.
And Bill Murray is like, oh, those are good ideas. He's really complimenting him, but you can tell he really hates it.
Yeah.
And as soon as Bobcat walks away, he's like top of the world. He's like, oh, my boss loves my ideas.
Sure.
He's going to implement them. And he walks over to Alfred Woodard's character.
He goes, who is that man? Yeah. She's like,
And he says, hey, fire him.
yeah.
And she's like, but Bill, what's his name in the movie?
Frank.
Oh, she's like, Frank, it's Christmas.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, well, while you're at it, call accounting and cancel his bonus.
Yeah.
Like, oh, thanks for reminding me.
Thanks for reminding me while you're at it, cancel his bonus. His name is Elliot Loudermilk. That's
Thank
who
you.
Bobcat
Yeah,
Goldthwait's
Loudermilk,
character is.
yeah.
And he's like, ooh, good shot of his back.
Yeah.
As he's like leaving. And
But the best part is, and it's insane, she gets on the phone and she says, Elliot Loudermilk, Code 9.
Code 9.
So Code 9 is to lock him out of the building and
Yeah.
lock his codes. And then we cut to him later. He's just sitting outside, and the security drops off his box of
Yeah.
supplies and whatnot.
He's like, thanks, fellas. Yeah. And he just like, his character just deteriorates. Like he
Man,
goes
so quick.
like straight to a liquor store, and he talks about how his wife left him and took his baby daughter. Widow. He goes, widow. Like he's very very animated in
Yeah.
this movie. I mean, that's Bobcat. That's what he does.
It reminded me a little bit of Louis Tully from Ghostbusters,
Oh,
kind of.
yes.
They're very similar in the way
Nice.
they act. And I love when he returns at the end,
Yep.
before Bill Murray makes his, character turn,
Yep.
with this big elephant hunting rifle,
Yeah.
trying to kill Bill Murray.
Yep.
I love that scene too.
And he's like blowing away, like
Yeah.
giant holes in computers
right.
and stuff. Yeah.
Like, I don't care what happens, what Bill Murray does at the end, they're not gonna hire that guy back.
Oh no, he did. Yeah, he
It's
gone.
attempted
Yeah.
murder, man.
Yeah, yeah, right. Let's move on. So we've talked about the Ghost of Christmas Present,
Right,
the
right.
Ghost of Christmas Past, and let's go on to the Ghost of Christmas Future because it gets really dark.
It gets really dark, and when he gets in the elevator, and this big, massive death is just back there with the big black robe on.
Yeah,
Creepy, man.
so creepy. He like opens the robe up a couple of times.
When he opens the robe, I wasn't prepared for what I saw under the
Yeah.
robe.
Very like Stan Winston effects.
Yeah.
Very like 80s practical
It
effects.
was like haunted souls and
Yeah.
these creepy
like
faces.
all of these souls that death is getting are living inside of his body.
Yeah.
It's really creepy.
It's a cool concept, but I was not prepared to see that
Yeah.
in this movie.
Same. Yep.
And so they take him downstairs in the elevator, and the elevator doors open. We see a casket. We see his brother, who was in the beginning scene in Central Park.
and Bill Murray's kind of confused because
Yeah.
he thinks it's a funeral for somebody else.
And I was trying to figure out, okay, who could be in the casket,
But-
but I should have known.
That twist was really cool, though.
It was.
Like the way they revealed, like his boots, like they cut to him in the
Yes.
and the flames are coming through, and he's got his boots on.
I'm not claustrophobic, but in that scene, I felt
Dude,
very claustrophobic,
same.
man.
It was good.
Yeah.
It was really good.
And then, which obviously that kind of hits the point home that he needs to change because
Yeah.
he's going to see what happens to him.
Now, the point you made about how Bill Murray can't get emotional, the next scene where he has this whole speech, I disagree. That was a very well acted scene.
Okay,
Do you think so?
I'm going to 100% disagree.
Wow, man,
Yeah.
He just kind of starts rambling, but it's all emotional.
So about this scene, actually, you know what? I'm going to take back my previous statement. I don't think that's a bad acting on his part.
Okay.
Because by the end of it, his eyes are red, for real.
He really gets into it.
And when you start to tear up, your eyes do turn red.
Yep.
And I said, oh, okay, he pulled it off.
Yep.
And this is the closing scene, basically, the end of the movie.
Right.
This is when you really want to drive the point home.
Yep.
And so I do agree with the speech being powerful. He is going on about the season of Christmas and being a better person, this and that.
Yep.
But none of that was in the script.
It's all improv.
It's all improv. That whole long, 5-minute monologue.
Dude, and it's so emotional.
And it's great and it's emotional. But Donner said when he started this monologue off, he's supposed to stay in one place.
Yeah, he just goes all over the place.
He goes all over the place.
Yeah.
And
so when the cameras are like, did you notice that that's Richard Donner in the control booth?
I didn't.
That's the director of the movie.
Okay.
It's kind of a bigger guy with white hair.
Yeah.
He's like, follow him.
Yeah.
That's the director.
And I think that had to be a real thing.
I think it was.
Because Donner's even been quoted as saying he thought in that scene Bill Murray was having a mental breakdown.
Wow.
Going off on this rant, you know?
Yeah. But he was just caught up in the moment.
He was caught up in the moment.
He was in his character and he was just feeling it, and it's so great.
I feel like that scene probably was shot last.
Okay.
Because I think so we talked about Bill Murray was miserable this entire time on this set.
Yep.
I think this was his moment where he's like, I'm exhausted, I'm miserable, let me just get this done.
He sounded exhausted.
He did.
And he's even kind of just losing his voice toward the end. And then he picks up the little boy. And
Alfred Woodard's youngest son.
And it was such a sweet moment.
Yeah.
You know? He's like, you got something to say, big man?
And he says, and God bless us everyone.
He says, God bless us everyone.
Okay.
And I tear up.
Me too.
I teared up, bro.
Okay, that
every
scene got
time
me
I
too.
watch it,
Yeah.
I watch it every year. I tear up every year. It cuts to his mom, and she does this cool little sweet clap, and she's so excited because she knew he was going to talk.
Yeah.
He's like, remember, there's this scene in the beginning of the movie where she's walking him down after they go see a doctor.
Right.
And he's like, I don't need to pay him to tell me what I already know. You're gonna talk one day, you just haven't done it yet. You know, because we find out that he hasn't been talking since he saw his dad killed.
Yeah.
Right. And when that moment happens, whenever he whispers, "God bless us, everyone," and she does, it cuts to her and she does that clap. It makes me cry more. It's such an emotional part.
I kept waiting because you watch movies enough, you pick up on little moments like that.
Yeah.
And
the payoff.
The payoff, yeah. And I said, the payoff's gonna happen in this scene.
Bro. And it's a really good bow because you've tied up the part with Bill Murray's character changing, Frank changes, and then you tie up the loose end with the little boy talking.
Right.
And it's just a heartstring being pulled moment.
And like you said, you whisper that line because he whispers it, it's like an intimate moment between the character and Frank, the boy and Frank.
Yep.
So that was a great scene, man.
Yeah. Very emotional.
Yeah.
Just a pivotal scene.
I agree.
Yep.
I love all the, when he continues to go back to the set.
Yeah.
And all this chaos is happening, and there's one point where he disappears with one of the ghosts that comes back, and so Bryce enters the scene again. He said, "Oh, Frank, we've been looking for you. We didn't know where you went." So it made me wonder when the ghosts show up.
He disappears.
They're taking him out of, I guess, this realm. And,
we've been looking for you for hours. Yeah.
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 And then I guess when the ghosts are done with him, they send him back to his reality.
Yeah.
And people can see him.
There's a few scenes we got to talk about. The solid gold dancers. The whole physical comedy of the lady getting hit by the lamp, and that whole thing. Let's just talk about that because it was really funny. What did you think of that?
I actually like it. I'm not really a big fan of
physical comedy.
And slapstick. Other than Kevin James and King of Queens.
Oh God, such a good show.
And then of course I love the old Three Stooges.
Okay. And but you didn't like this scene?
No, so I did like this.
Okay.
But I guess my point is I'm not a fan of that kind of comedy
Normally,
in general.
Yeah.
But for me in this movie it worked. So if it works, it works.
It was so funny. She keeps getting smacked, and they're like, hey, turn her over, and they go alley-oop, and they flip her over, and there's a nurse there, and Frank, Bill Murray's character walks over to her and grabs her head and really turns it very violently, and he's like,
so aggressive.
He's like, is it okay to move? And the nurse goes, no.
After he already turned her head.
He's already turned her. And he's like, look at that. And the girls are dancing.
Yeah.
But before that, there's that part where she's clearly you can see their nipples. And like the one guy goes, I can barely see them nipples. That was an improv line.
Oh, okay.
His name is Jack McGee. He ad-libbed his line, you can hardly see them nipples, which is one of my favorite lines. You can hardly see them nipples.
Yeah, that was a great little bit anyway, just them talking about, you can see this. Oh, no, you can't see that. You can barely see him.
Yeah.
And he's looking right at him.
Yeah, and you can see it.
Yeah.
Like they cut to the close-up, and
can,
you can see her nipple. The guy who's like the director of those dancers is a very 80s looking like black show business guy.
Yeah, 100%.
He looked familiar, but I don't know. It was just really funny.
Yeah, I wondered if that was supposed to be like a caricature of somebody that's real.
I'm sure it was. Yeah, somebody in that business.
Right.
Yep.
Again, I'm going to go back to the beginning when he's looking at all these ads and he hates them. And of course, they're all cutting to him. This must have been an 80s thing where they open up with like a boardroom meeting.
Well, Planes, Trains does it too.
Yeah. And they're all waiting for him to decide.
Uh-huh.
And so at the end of all these ads airing, these members look at Bill Murray and he sits in silence. He's got this look on his face.
And he looks down.
Now I have to kill all of you.
Yeah. Now I have to kill all of you. He looks down and he's got a mirror in his desk, and he puts on a smile, and I think it's where we see the gun.
Yeah.
And like it's just such a funny thing, and like there's other things in corporate America that like are like in this, like he has a full bar in his office.
Yeah, that's true.
He's got a gun in his desk. Everything's black. Like,
right.
Remember that one scene whenever the ghost of Christmas Present is talking to him? Frank, don't you remember when Grace's husband died? She was wearing black. And he was like, yeah, I remember her wearing black, but I thought like people were wearing black.
Yeah.
Like that's a really funny thing.
Yeah. It's a joy to watch certain actors just be in the zone.
Yes.
And like I said, he's at an 11 this whole film.
Absolutely.
But it worked, I guess, because it's Bill Murray.
Yep.
I can't think of many other actors who I could watch an entire hour and a half of this actor being at an 11 the entire time.
I don't know if I can't think of any other movies where he has this much energy.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing. I think this was the movie that kind of taught him he needs to kind of scale it back.
Yeah.
Donner even has a quote where he says he's never worked with an improv comedian like Murray and states, you don't direct Murray, you pull him back.
Exactly. You reel him in
right.
or rein him in.
Yeah.
So a little bit of trivia. Filming began of this movie in December of 1987. With Christmas approaching, director Richard Donner asked if the production could have Christmas Day off. But Paramount Pictures executives refused, insisting that filming should continue on Christmas Day. However, Donner outwitted them. At the end of the day, on December 24th, Christmas Eve, 1987, he officially fired the entire cast and crew. 2 days later, December 26th, he officially rehired everyone. The break allowed the cast and crew members to spend Christmas with their families.
This guy's good, man.
Bro, what a class move.
I never would have thought of
I'm
that.
going to fire these guys for 2 days.
Yeah. Like, it makes me wonder, did he tell them, hey, I'm going to fire you guys, but don't say anything?
I hope so.
I mean, I would hope so, too. Because you're going to ruin everyone's Christmas just to give them Christmas off and
like
fire.
he found a loophole to be able to get his cast and crew the much needed time off on Christmas Day.
That's clever, man.
And the day after or whatever. And then they went back to work and they finished it. Yeah, it's crazy.
I want to talk about the marketing for this film because I wasn't a fan of how Paramount approached marketing this film, advertising the film. They wanted to capitalize on Murray's success from Ghostbusters.
Oh, okay.
So obviously this movie does have ghosts in it.
Yep.
And they even use the tagline, Bill Murray is back among the ghosts, only this time it's 3 against 1.
Oh.
Which is a cool tagline.
Okay, but you didn't like that?
Well, I didn't like it because, like I said, they're trying to capitalize off the Ghostbusters fame
Ghostbusters,
to draw people in.
Yep.
I'm a fan of originality, and I think.
So they're trying to just ride the coattails of Ghostbusters.
Yeah, and what I try to do as a writer is come up with content that is fresh and I haven't seen before.
Yeah.
And so I think it's kind of lazy, but I understand why they would do it.
There's that whole like shtick of or trope of in trailers when they're like from the director of this and 3 of the writers from blah 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 or whatever.
I've seen movies where they try to sell the movie on from the producer of. I'm thinking the producer.
Like the producer probably didn't do much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Only had had
some
his
producers
name.
do.
Yeah.
But a lot of producers don't.
Right. Yeah.
They just threw some money at it.
marketing it's a weird thing in the industry, man. The way they try to just
Absolutely. And also, like, trailers are cut very early on in the production.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff's not even edited yet.
Right.
And or you'll see things in the trailer that you won't see in the final cut of the movie.
Exactly. Yeah.
So maybe they just had to put something together real fast. Because this whole production was rushed.
Right.
You know?
So the writer of this film is Michael O'Donoghue.
Mm-hmm.
He's quoted as saying Donner didn't understand comedy, and so that's part of the friction with him and Murray is he didn't understand how to work with comedic actors.
But that's interesting because there's a lot of funny moments in Lethal Weapon and in Goonies, and like he understands.
I think a lot of that had to do with.
But comedians is different.
Right. And I think that's probably part of it. I mean, you're working with Bill Murray, who's an improv genius.
Right.
He just didn't know how to wrangle him in.
I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, wrangling in improv actors, especially as giant personalities like Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the story goes, Bill Murray and director Richard Donner reportedly did not enjoy working together, creating a lot of tension on set. When asked by film critic Roger Ebert if he had any disagreements with Donner, Murray replied, "Only a few, every single minute of the day. That could have been a really, really great movie. The script was so good. There's maybe one take in the final cut that is mine. We made it so fast, it was like doing a movie live. He kept telling me to do things louder, louder, louder. I think he was deaf."
Wow. Typical Bill Murray.
It's crazy. Yeah.
I know Murray helped or gave a lot of insight into what went into the script. And it makes me wonder, this guy improv so much of the film and so much of his other movies, why even give input at all if you're just going to freestyle it what you get on camera,
right.
you know?
So there's a bunch of favorite moments that I have.
Okay.
There's a scene when, we talked about it earlier, whenever Bill Murray sees one of the waiters and he's on fire.
Yeah.
And he like throws the water on him. And what does he say? Do you remember what he says? The next line?
I don't.
So he douses the guy in water and he goes, I'm sorry. I thought you were Richard Pryor.
Which has nothing to do with him throwing water on the guy at all.
It's just such a funny line. And then he climbs up those steps and he walks out and then he falls. Do you remember that part? He slips. He's like going through the doorway. He slips and falls. That was a genuine accident because he just threw water, and he's wearing like these boots. Like in the 80s, it was real popular to wear like cowboy boots.
Okay.
Especially like black leather boots with like suits, like business suits. It was a really big thing. And he's wearing those boots, and there's not much grip on those cowboy boots.
Right.
And he slips and falls. And the trivia reads, Bill Murray falling on his way out of the restaurant is said to have been unscripted and a genuine accident. Apparently it was due to the stairs being wet, and it caused him to lose his footing. It was just an accident, but it's so funny.
Yeah, it makes me wonder how many movies that we've seen that we love over the years where something accidental happens, but the director keeps rolling.
It's a happy accident.
Yeah, that's what they call it? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we talked about this earlier, but like the leader of the Street Musicians, insulted by Bill Murray, is Paul Schaefer. The others are Miles Davis, David Sunborn, and Larry Carlton. Big.
I'm fans of all those guys. I've listened to a lot of their music.
Carol Kane would get upset at having to rough up Bill Murray in their scenes together. So she's the Ghost of Christmas Present. So she didn't want to do that.
She didn't seem upset to me, man.
So whenever Bill Murray throws the water on that guy, and he goes, "I thought you were Richard Pryor," this is why he said that.
I know where you're going with this because I know this story.
When Frank throws water on the waiter, he sees burning. He says, "I'm sorry, I thought you were Richard Pryor." This is a reference to an event in Pryor's life when, while freebasing cocaine, accidentally set himself on fire and ran down a busy street in Los Angeles.
Yeah. You never heard that story before?
I never heard that story before.
Yeah, he's talked about it in several interviews, and he kind of even discusses it in one of his stand-ups. Man, Richard Pryor was wild back in the 80s
He was
and 70s,
wild.
man.
Yeah, so funny that
Yeah.
he was really, really funny. Well, this is kind of cool. On the set of the Frisbee show, when Frank is the dog in the dog suit, there's a tree on set with a heart engraving, and it says "Dick loves Lauren," referring to director Richard Donner and his wife, producer Lauren Schuler Donner.
Okay. Oh, so in that scene also, Murray's hair was horrible. When he takes the dog helmet off, He's got the long, bad hair.
Yeah.
Bill Murray's always had bad hair to me anyway.
Yeah.
It's just like, what do you do with that?
And this was like the 80s long hair, too. It didn't look good. Yeah. What about that scene whenever she gives him the book of the Kama Sutra? And he's like, did this.
Done that one.
Done that. My
Yep.
friend of mine did that one. And he goes, oh, this is interesting. There's a part in here that says if you scratch a girl in the right place, it makes her bark like a dog.
Yeah.
And he like barely touches her, and she's like, woof, woof. And you're like, that's a really funny scene. I like
funny.
that.
It's one of those moments that couples do in closed doors, but never would like say, hey, this is what we do. You know, it's just. So I love the scene where Frank goes to visit Claire at the homeless shelter.
Yep.
And he's sitting with the homeless people.
And they think he's the guy from Exorcist.
Yes.
Exorcist.
Yeah.
Because the guy says Exorcist. Yeah. Exorcist 1 and 2 in the Night of the Guana. Yeah. And he does the line, and they're all like.
Yes.
So the old woman in that trio, there's two guys and an old woman.
Right.
She's the woman from Goonies.
Really?
Yep. Did you recognize her?
No, I didn't.
She's the mob boss's mom.
With the big
Yeah.
little wart on her face.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't.
So that's
I had no
who that
idea.
is.
Okay.
And those other two are big actors too.
Yeah.
So movie critic Roger Ebert said this was the worst film adaptation of A Christmas Carol he had ever seen.
Wow. I know a lot of critics thought it was either too mean-spirited or too lighthearted.
Yeah. So this movie was made between Lethal Weapon 1 and Lethal Weapon 2.
Okay.
So in one of the Frank's promotions at the start of the film, the narrator lists international terrorism among modern evils besetting the world, accompanied by visuals of a plane exploding. During the film's release, hijackers blew up a Pan Am flight over Lockerbie, Scotland. Lockerbie, Scotland.
Yeah, see, like I said earlier when I mentioned that scene, I thought that was insensitive, even though 9/11 hadn't happened yet, because I knew there was some international event that was very similar to that in that time period. I just didn't know what it was. So you reading that, it makes sense.
I did not know this. This is a piece of trivia I've never read before. Conrad Hall was the original DP of this movie. Conrad Hall is a famous director of photography.
Okay.
He was fired 5 days into filming and was replaced by Michael Chapman. Bill Murray turned down the lead roles in Rain Man, Big, and Cocktail to make this movie. Can you imagine those movies with Bill Murray?
Wait, Rain Man, Cocktail, and what?
Big.
So Tom Hanks and 2 Tom Cruise movies.
Yeah.
I wonder if he regrets any of those.
I don't know.
Those movies would be super different if he had taken those roles. He could have done Big. I think he would have done really well in Big.
Yeah.
Cocktail.
Tom Hanks did such a good job in Big.
Yeah, I don't know if he could do Cocktail or Rain Man.
Favorite scenes?
Everything from the beginning.
You loved it that much.
I did, man, because
That makes me happy.
Because, well, also for me, like going in fresh, never seeing this kind of sets the tone for what to expect from Bill Murray for the next hour and a half.
Exactly.
And I thought they set the bar really high, and I think he really followed through.
Yeah.
And carried the film. And I just love the banter, the little facial expressions he makes.
Yeah.
The little, like you said, the little nod to he opens the drawer and he like winks at himself in the mirror in his drawer, and just firing
Elliot Loudermilk.
Loudermilk, firing him, and then Grace gets on the phone. Oh, we got a code 9. Like all that stuff leading up to everything else that ensues later. To me, is a great setup, and it's just hilarious the entire time.
One of my favorite lines is when they're at that Christmas party and the girl's passing out like pictures of her butt. Like this is like Xeroxes of her butt. And she's like, hey, do you want to go get some Chinese food? And he's like, oh, you're not supposed to eat that stuff.
Yes.
And he like walks away. Whenever Bill Murray sees himself doing that, he's like, come on. He's like, I must be out of my mind. Like all that stuff. And he's like, he sticks his head out the elevator and he's looking at that party and the doors, and he's like, oh, and like he makes that funny noise. Like there's so many of those little Bill Murray isms in this movie that just make it.
That's to me what helps make the film elevate to another level for me. So for sure.
So one of my favorite things to do is around this time of year is to pour a glass of whiskey and watch this movie.
Yeah.
And it's such a fun movie. It's such a dark movie, and I really enjoy it.
It's dark, but to me, I don't think it's too dark that it detracts from the overall theme of the film, though.
Exactly.
Because I feel like you have to go that dark
to make the turn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, guys, this was Scrooged. I really enjoyed it. Mike really enjoyed it.
I did.
If you've never seen it, please do yourself a favor and watch Scrooged, and you'll understand what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
Later.